Okay, and so now we are live on a couple of social media channels, but right here on Amazon Live. And so
Mhm.
this is not the usual aspects of aging show that you would expect every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. This is a little different show because uh, Christine, who is the host of the Aging Better Network Aspects of Aging weekly show,
Mhm.
normally she has 5 guests that are experts in speaking about aspects of aging.
Right.
But today, Christine and I are just going to have a conversation and share with you our experience from our 16-day trip in Texas. So, what's funny is we were talking about this yesterday, Christine, that
Yes.
we have not been back as long as we were gone. But why don't we launch and tell people a little bit about what happened in
Yes.
Texas, why we were there, some of the places we got to see. And I'm just going to tell people that highlighted in the carousel is one of Christine's books. And we're going to get to talking about all of these in a little bit. But go ahead. Let's get started, Christine. Tell us what's going on.
Right
What
now,
happened?
we are, because you started to say, what's going on. Right now, we are sitting at home at our respective desks in Oregon. So it's
Mhm.
a big deal to us to say that we were 16 days in the state of Texas, 6 or 7 different cities that we stopped and did something significant during our stay, not just passing through or a quick bite to eat. We went all over really eastern Texas, the
Yeah,
the
east,
green
southern, and
part.
central.
Exactly. So we were intentional about that. And Scott's right. I called myself the hashtag aging enthusiast because I'm enthusiastic about being informed about aging, not just pushing it off until it happens to you. It
Mhm.
usually being in a lot of people's minds when they start feeling old, when problems happen, when other people start to say, "Oh, do you mean that older person over in the corner of the store?" Um, I love being informed and books, libraries of books. When someone was looking for information, they were looking for the library so they could look up this information. Some books came to your home, um, the the phone book and some
Mhm.
catalogs, and Amazon is a great way to thumb through the catalog. I needed a background that would always be the same no matter what was going on in the room behind me. I didn't want the artificial background. I can
Mhm.
use one, but I didn't want it. So my husband bought that screen on Amazon. I'm so pleased with it.
It was
But
funny because
back to information.
we did a quick search and said, "Yep, that's the one." Hit the button, and a couple of days later, it showed up, and it was perfect.
I could carry it into our home on my own without,
Mhm.
grunting. It really has turned out to be the perfect thing. So, the reason why we went to Texas, aging enthusiast, hashtag aging enthusiast is what I call myself. I wanted to go there a number of years ago as we approached our 40th anniversary.
Mhm.
So, Scott and I have been aging. Everyone who's listening, everyone who's watching is aging too. Sometimes it's more in the forefront of your mind. And in this situation, our aging was in the forefront of our mind in a very positive way. I was looking for what do we do for our 40th anniversary? And I remembered that Texas was where we had our first kiss.
Mhm.
However, we had a different reason for arriving in Texas at least three different reasons, timing wise, to arrive in Texas just this month. I'm going to let you start talking about why this timing.
Yeah. So in 2017, the Great American Eclipse, which started on the West Coast and ended on the East Coast, went from coast to coast. One of the first places it landed was Oregon, and it went right over our backyard, which was a wonderful experience. And for those
Yes.
of you who have experienced a total eclipse, you know what I'm talking about. If you have not experienced a total eclipse, find a way to do that, because as soon as we had experienced the one in 2017 in August, I told my wife, Christine, right here, that now I know why people travel thousands of miles and plan and spend a lot of money to go see an eclipse, because it's an unbelievably wonderful experience. And so we were planning for our 40th wedding anniversary. So what are we going to do? And we saw that in April, there was going to be a total eclipse and it was going to go over Texas. And so we decided that's what we were going to do. But that wasn't the only thing that we did in Texas. But we did have a chance to go down to Texas and travel to Waco, is where we stayed, and actually where we watched the eclipse. And so for fans of HGTV and here on Amazon, you can actually rent Fixer Upper, or you can buy Fixer Upper, seasons of Fixer Upper, which is
and we
Chip
did.
and Joanna Gaines, and they're in Waco, Texas, and they got a program on HGTV where they did fixing up houses. And it was a great promotion for the community of Waco. And one of the things that they ended up buying and fixing up was a couple of old silos, and they turned it into Magnolia Market. And there's a lot of things that go on there. One of the things that they did was built a replica, scaled down, of an actual baseball field where former professional baseball players like Babe Ruth would actually go, and Lou Gehrig would actually go and practice and have those off-season practice games, whatever, for the whole Major League Baseball, right?
Yes,
Well,
and Scott and I sat next to, just down the bench from, Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth,
that's
because
exactly right.
there's these gorgeous statues that kids were like just sitting on the shoulders of them as the statues are sitting on the benches.
Absolutely. So we had a chance to go to Waco and enjoy the eclipse while we were there, and be on the baseball field, on this little miniature baseball field with a bunch of other folks. So HGTV, Fixer Upper, it's right here on Amazon. But that was just a fun time. We also made it to South Texas. We went down to Corpus Christi and then to San Antonio. And tell us a little bit, Christine, about why we were at San Antonio.
Well, this is a good time to take a peek at the books that we brought. Okay, so 2 large suitcases, right? You get 2 small suitcases and 2 little bags that you can stick under the seat on the airplane. And one of our large bags was some equipment, because my husband does a lot with filming, and a bunch of our books. So the 2 that I brought were Pre-Act Your Age prompted journal. So that's pre-act. People used to say act your age. It was kind of a finger shaker, right? Act your age, not your shoe size. One of our daughter's friends said, but I'm 12 years old and I'm already wearing size 12. And he was. Another one that I heard from people here and there when I mentioned that one, act your age, they said, not your IQ. And I still haven't really thought that one through, but I'm
Sounds
thinking,
like a diss.
are you saying act your age, not your IQ, meaning I think you have a low IQ based upon some behavior I'm seeing? I'm not sure. But pre-act your age prompted journal has 52. So 52, you mentioned it earlier, aspects of aging.
Mhm.
These are general, typical, common issues, characteristics that come into life as you continue to live into
Mhm.
your longevity. I thought that people ought to know ahead of time what to expect because everything else in your life, you've been planning ahead to go on a trip, ahead to go into a relationship, ahead to go into a career or education or into volunteering somewhere. You've been planning ahead. Well, you're going to go into your future. In fact, I see that Russ Hedge is jumping up and down in the comments. He was just talking this morning about that he is looking ahead to his next birthday, which is a nice round birthday. And as he looks ahead into his longevity, so far I haven't found anybody who's against longevity, down
Mhm.
with longevity, no continuous, healthy. They call it health span and wellness span instead of just lifespan. How many birthday candles can you blow out? That sort of a thing. So yes, and he's actually, yay, Russ, you're bragging that you are doing everything you can to catch up with Scott and I. He's turning 60 this summer. We're hitting our 40th anniversary this summer. So I put 52 different aspects of aging that I saw as I was a hired caregiver in not in that home, not in that building, although we did go into that building. 52 different aspects, what to expect, and ideas on how to bolster your emotional intelligence and your relational resilience. That's one of the books that I took there. So that is very recognizable. In fact, Scott and our daughter kept texting back and forth about Pee Wee Herman. And the one thing that Pee Wee Herman could remember after he was knocked out
Mhm.
was, well, what can you remember? And his response was,
The Alamo. I
to the
remember
cheer of
the
the crowd in
Alamo.
Texas,
Absolutely.
as he was looking for his bicycle, his beloved bicycle.
Mhm.
So, and congratulations on our 40 years, says Russ Hedge, who has a bunch of shows. Russ Hedge, AKA, what does he say? You know it.
Hashtag Russ selfie.
Russ Selfie. That was it.
Mhm.
So thanks, Russ, for saying hello to us as we do a very different aspects of aging. So obviously, we're not here to complain about our aging, but to actually celebrate it. And as we continue to live, we're looking for new experiences. You, my dear husband, have been
Mhm.
to the Alamo before, but that was my first time.
Absolutely. And here's a quick shot outside the silos there as we
Yay!
were just traveling about. And this was a couple of days actually before the eclipse or a day before the eclipse. So
Mhm,
that
mhm.
was a lot of fun. Yeah, it's
Remember that.
your book, and we've got it highlighted here in the carousel, Pre-Act Your Age Prompted Journal. This is something that you can buy for yourself or for a friend or a loved one. Great on Amazon because you can just put in their address and send it right to them. The
Mhm.
uh, Pre-Act Your Age Prompted Journal is, think of it as like kind of a workbook, and it's
It
going to help
is.
you in what my wife describes as the third of your life. And when you start thinking about that, is you're like Russ Hedge and you're turning 60, that's just that you have another third of your life. That is a lot of
Mhm.
time.
And
and
when you turn
being intentional.
61, you still have another third of your life
You got
because
a lot
you
going
don't have
on,
an
yeah.
expiration date.
So that's a lot of time. So, as my wife was saying, be intentional
Yeah.
about planning for that third. Don't wait until you're 70 or 75. Doesn't hurt to have this book, but maybe you want to start a little bit younger. Maybe you want to start when you're 60 years old to get the Pre-Act Your Age Prompted Journal, 52 different aspects of aging. Now, these aspects all came about because my wife was a hired caregiver. Christine was a hired caregiver in nearly 100 homes. That's a
Mhm.
lot of families and more than 100 people, probably 200 or more people. They all had questions about their aging and they followed a pattern. So she would be out in her car on a break or lunch and would write them down on little scraps of paper and then saved them and
Mhm.
then compiled them into these 52 aspects of aging. You're not going to find something like this anywhere else. There's a lot of books about aging, about how to not age, how to look younger, how to dress younger, or keep the wrinkles out of your face.
Yeah,
There's
those are other books.
there's
Those
books
are
out
other
there
books.
about
So
there's
you
books
know,
out there about pre planning for retirement or for your
Mhm.
estate,
Mhm.
even your burial. But
Right, all good.
nobody, as my wife says, nobody prepares you for the emotions of getting older.
Mhm.
This book, the 52 aspects of aging in the Pre-Act Your Age Prompted Journal, are what you need. Can you hold a copy of that up so people can see?
Yeah.
This is a good book, and people want to have that. It's highlighted in the carousel right now.
I would like to add an upgrade to what you said earlier. You said if you're already 70, 75, 85, 95, 105,
Mhm,
it wouldn't hurt to have this book. I'm going to upgrade that to this is your this is your checklist to find out what you've already done right
mhm,
because I learned from the best. My people, the reason why I showed up at the front door each day, each evening, whatever was my assigned shift, I walked into um, the life of a person between 75 and 105 years old
mhm,
during those years, which was last decade. And I got to see everything they had done right. There were also the sighs of regret, what they wish they had done differently. And then there were the sighs of relief. Now, I was in a home where if it wasn't Meals on Wheels visiting, it was a neighbor, a friend, and kids my age, kids in their 50s, 60s, 70s. I mean, if my client is 105, then they've got kids who are 80. And those people would also talk with me because, after a while, I was just part of the flow of the family. And they
mhm.
would confide in me what they were doing right for their own future aging,
That's right.
having watched a parent go through that, as well as maybe a spouse talking about, you know, this is the challenges that they are facing, my loved one is facing. I'm I feel pretty, secure in the what I've done with my relationships and how I'm just going, yep, it happens. Aging happens and aging has challenges and bumps and pitfalls and how great to actually know ahead of time that I need to find out what an elder law attorney is.
Mhm.
I need to kind of measure the distance between where we're living now and where we're having to go for medical, um, you know, professional help. And I admired those people. And I thought, you know what? This information shouldn't just go away after those people don't need it or after I'm no longer working in their homes. So, hooray for publishing. I did not publish in my 50s or 40s or 30s. I published for the first time in my 60s, and
Mhm.
it still worked.
Absolutely. And as we were on the road, as you can see, Christine and I did have an opportunity in our travels to go into the space shuttle. Um, so there
Yes,
you have
we
it.
did.
There we are. Or that may actually be the International Space Station. So uh, you just never
Which
know where your
one
travels
was
might
that? We'll
take you.
have to go back. It was Houston and it was NASA, and I get to
Mhm.
say it. Houston, we did not have a problem.
That's right.
It was fantastic. And we found out that if we really want to see the mission control, the actual room, that you need to book that part of your experience at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. You
Hmm.
need to book it 1 month out. So now we are better informed for our next trip, which is why I write my book so that people can be better informed about something they just want to handle very well.
Hmm. Absolutely. And you have another book there that you've written, and I'm going to highlight that in the carousel
Oh,
as
thank
well.
you.
And it's a little smaller book, but it is
Oh,
also
yes.
very important. And this is another reason why we went down to the Texas Library Association conference in San Antonio. But on our way, we did stop at the Space Center Houston in Houston. Definitely worth visiting. I encourage everybody take advantage of these opportunities. And again, you don't have to wait till you're in the third of your life. But all of us experience loss and grief, and when those waves of grief come over us, what do we do? Christine, share a little bit about this particular book.
I spent a lot of time alone with people who had lived um, and it lived through, experienced, grieved, mourned, loss. Um, People who have been through more decades of that than I have been alive.
Mm,
So there was a season where several of my clients were 96 years old. So they had very obviously lost people who were beyond their age, who were their age. Many of them had suffered the loss of their own children or other people younger. Well, there's a lot of other kinds of loss. Um, a beloved pet, a person of notoriety that you've never met, but you loved watching them on TV or reading their books, or just knowing that they were in the political office. Even a person that you saw often. There was one show where a person was mourning the loss of the person who always cut their hair. And
mhm,
it's a horrible shock. You have spent personal time with these people. There's other kinds of grieving. I call it re-grieving.
mm,
Somehow you just weren't finished. It was. This book is not about, hey, get over it at all. It's it's going to happen, and it's going to happen again. You are going to wake up and remember your own brush with mortality or several brushes. You're going to open the newspaper and see someone in the obituary, someone you're accustomed to seeing around your area. You're going to answer the phone and find out that a friend has either gone on to hospice or that your loved one has received a really dire diagnosis.
mm,
And as you age, it's going to hit over and over again. The birthdays or anniversaries, you're going to see something that always reminds you of that person that you wish that you were going to have a future with. And speaking of that, there is a kind of grief that is associated with dementia. Yes, dementia will end in death, so the person themselves and those around them. But if it is a long journey, there is a grieving that comes along with saying, was that our last time to experience a holiday, a
Mm.
trip, talking about the game that happened minutes ago, hours ago, a week ago? Is that our last? So, Caregiver Kit is actually not a metaphor. It is choose your container, choose where you will store that container, change your mind, change the container,
Mhm.
but put something in that container that comforts you, put something in there that gives you a reason to have a good cry. Put something in there that reminds you that someone else could be grieving that same loss today. He was your favorite uncle, but your cousin is grieving a father.
Mhm.
Put something in there that um, lifts you out of the moment. Put something in there that reminds you that sometimes you go so deeply into your mourning that you need to contact someone else and get that professional.
Mm.
You know what? You didn't go to college on how to counsel you.
Mhm.
You don't need to. Somebody else did that and they're ready for you. So put something in there, a phone number. You might put in a sweater. You might put in something you like to eat. And that is a really good segue for my husband because he has a part in my book. I
Mm.
hogged I hogged the authorship, but he is the one who said, put something in there about me, and he'll tell you
Mhm.
what this didn't start as a book. Um, it started as something else. So I'm just going to turn the mic over to you, sweetheart, and you
So
can tell about your part in
yeah.
here.
So one of the things, so my mother, when she passed a number of years ago, she loved Abba Zaba candy bars, and so when I want to remember my mother, I can grab an Abba Zaba candy bar. Good luck finding one, but those are available. We also liked watching the movie The Sting, which I got here on Amazon, and I bought it, so it's in our items right here. So if I missing my mother, I can just tune in and watch The Sting and remember the great times that we had together. In my dad's toolbox when I was growing up, he had an 8 ball that he got when he was in high school. Who knows how he got it? But here's this 8 ball. When I was growing up, it was in his toolbox. And so I have this, and it just helps me remember great times with my dad
Mhm.
growing up. And, he passed in 95. And here it is all these years later. And I have his 8 ball. And it doesn't mean anything to anybody else. And they wonder, why would Scott have this 8 ball in his office? But it's
Mhm.
part of that Care Griever kit. And Russ Hedge, who is watching here, and you just saw, I'll put up a little comment. Russ says this is cool. Um, he lost his mother also to
Yeah.
dementia. And
Yeah.
he was doing little videos called Happy Moments with Mama. And he
Yeah.
shared one of those recently. And it just touched my heart. And I know that it's a comfort for him and for his family to have that. So just these little things. And so highlighted in the carousel is the Caregiver Kit. Again, buy a copy for yourself, send a copy to a friend, somebody who maybe has lost somebody recently, even pets. We are so attached to our furry little friends that we want to, we consider them part of our family. And so send this book to a friend. It is, Christine was showing, it's not a long book. There's just the information that you need, but it's going to help you to create your own kit so that when you experience those waves of grief, you'll be able to deal with that. So
We've been talking all morning about Texas. There's a reason why we went to San Antonio. In addition, hey, that's Tom Landry. In case anybody doesn't know him, almost everyone does. That's
There
Tom
at the
Landry.
Cowboy Stadium. Yep.
Yes, that was brilliant, dear, when you said, should we leave Dallas where we landed? We were not going to fly out of Dallas. We weren't coming back. Should we leave here without at least going in? And we got to go into the stadium and look down on the field, which was covered with a whole nother truck and car show going on. But we did pose with Tom Landry there. I still need to send that picture to my cousin who for all our growing up years was such a Cowboys fan.
Still is. Yep.
I was just going to say that this is really short. So why would you get a book that's so short that, 20 pages? Because it isn't daunting. Because I trimmed out everything that I could have said and just focused on the one thing that I saw was present with aging people. And that was how they handled what they did for themselves, what they talked about when they were going through any sort of loss and grieving. And I just was like, this isn't anything that I could find elsewhere. So I wrote about it. I've heard that so many times. One person, so we were at the Texas Library Association conference as part of one booth that had books from several authors. And those authors were there off and on during the 3-day conference. Scott and I tried to be present there the whole time. I got to know their books, and I was, letting people know as they walked by that we had everything from children's all the way up to my category, which reminds me, I need to give you time in as we're halfway through to talk about one of your books that really pinpoints that typical student age. But one gal said, God had me come here today. She told me that she almost wasn't going to come. She is a librarian, but she, and I obviously am not giving anything away, has had many brushes with mortality. She said, I need to get this book for my kids. I came out from behind the table. We had some time together. Oh my goodness. This person is not certain of their longevity and wants to leave a legacy, to have something to talk about with her children who are closer to my age, somewhere between her and me. I loved it. I said, what do you do? And she goes, I'm a librarian. And I'm so glad she's still living in the now and preparing for the future. You showed a picture on the beach. That was where I just requested the opportunity to dip my toes into the Gulf of Mexico. First time in that part of Texas. I was in Texas more than 40 years ago when we had our first kiss and started to plan our future. And oh, look, did you take that picture? Good job. That was our opportunity to sign our books and listen to people. And you can tell we're right in the middle of another deep conversation. All I needed was a first name to sign in there. And sometimes they said, nope, just sign it. And, but I didn't need a name to be able to let them know why I wrote the book and for them to let me know why they thought they needed it.
Yeah, absolutely. The Texas Library Association conference was just a great time for us.
Mhm.
Christine was able to talk to so many people there and hear their stories, and I really had the same opportunity. So highlighted in the carousel is one of my books, and this is perfect for this time of year because we've got a lot of students who are going to be graduating either high school or college or graduate school. They're
Yeah.
looking into their future, and one of the best things that you can do is build your network or lean, as we say, lean into your existing network. So, this book here, and it's called Networking for Students. And
Mhm.
this is based on another book that I wrote called Business Networking, a Scientific Method, which is also in the carousel, but that's this book here. We actually look at the brain science about how we connect, what
Mhm.
happens in our brain. And so in this book, we give students an understanding of what does it mean to connect to somebody and
Yeah.
how to build your network. So why do you want to have a network? Well, maybe you need letters of recommendation so you can get into that school or get an
Mm.
apprenticeship or an internship. I was actually talking to a lady at the Texas Library Association conference, and her son is interested in joining one of the military academies. Well, to do that, you
Yeah.
have to get a letter from a US senator. And how do you do that? Well, you leverage your network and you find ways to connect. Now, the senators, they want to be able to do this. This is something they're going to do for the constituents, but they can't sign the letter if they don't know about you. And
Right.
so this is one of the things that you want to do. So, how did Christine and I end up at
Mm.
the Texas Library Association conference in San Antonio as a part of this 16-day trip? Through our professional network. We
Mhm.
connected through our network. So in this book, we look at the brain science and what does it mean to connect? How do you connect to people? Then at networking events, what do you do? Because when I was in college, people said, "Hey, Scott, to be successful, you need to network." And I'm like, "Okay, what do I do?" And they said, "Go to networking events." So then I go, all right, I'm now here at this networking event. I'm at the Chamber of Commerce. I'm at a business mixer. I'm at this university function. But what do I do? So they say, well, network. I'm like, this is circular. What do I, just tell me what to do. So in this book, not only do we look at the brain science and what happens
Mhm.
when we connect with people, when we shake hands, when we make eye contact, we talk about those things, but I actually give you a 6-step process on how to connect with people at the networking event. And the main phrase is be interesting by being interested. Learn to ask questions. And I call it being a motivational listener, which is a phrase and a title I have taken for myself, which I stole from my wife. One time, someone asked Christine and said, "Christine, what do you do?" She thought about it for a moment and then said, succinctly and very accurately, "I'm a motivational listener." And I said, "Christine, I love that. And I will always give you full credit because I am a good husband, but I'm stealing that." So in 2015, I appropriated the title motivational listener from my wife. So not only do we learn the brain science of how to connect, we also look at a 6-step process, literally down to the words that you say. We do talk about body language and eye contact and all those active listening skills that are in there, but we
Mm.
talk about being a motivational listener. And the goal there is for the person that you're speaking with to exit the conversation feeling better about themselves than before they started. And students, you can do this. If you have a student, your students can do this. They can
Mhm.
go to events, they can go to business mixers, Chamber of Commerce events, uh, open houses for schools or businesses, and they can talk to people and they will leave and people will say, "Wow, what an interesting person." But that student said almost nothing. They asked questions. The second half of the book, we talk about your business structure, your business network structure. What does it look like? Who should be in it? Right down to how often do you contact people? And so this is a comprehensive process. And if you were a business person and not a student, then I would recommend Business Networking, a scientific method. Same concepts that are in there, literally down to the words that you say. So when I was at the conference, I was having conversations with students, with librarians and counselors and administrators who said, there's a lot of books here for the younger students, but we're looking for some practical skills that they can use and learn in high school and beyond. That's why I wrote these two books. And it was so much fun to learn from these librarians. They're a fun group of people, and they have strong arms because they were getting how many books? I mean, we gave away books, and our books are not big books.
Bags of
I also
books.
had Freeze, and you can find that in here. This is purely for business folks. In Action in the Face of Business Crisis. This is focused on small business owners, and you can read about the details in there. Click on it. You can read the description. I won't go into Freeze in Action in the Face of a Business Crisis, but it is important for every small business owner, whether it's you or somebody that you know. But Christine, you also I'm just going to say the very first book that you published was The Act of Aging, Volume 1, and it's highlighted in the carousel. It's an ebook only. This is the book that this was the first book that you ever published. How old were you, and what did it take to write that book?
So since our other Russ friend named Russ told me that my word was published, did I do that in 22? I think that the Kindle one, because I needed to get up the courage to become a published author. And that was a talk topic while we were in Houston on the Social Media Breakfast Houston show that was in person, and people were watching as it was being filmed, and we got to be the guests with Cami Hoysa. As I was building up the courage to put my thoughts out into public, where I didn't have any control over them anymore, where they would go and how people would perceive me. I suppose there are people who are published authors who go, you know what, I'll just write about that. Oh, good job. There's
That's
your
my
co-author.
Co-author of Freeze.
Yes, and her name is?
Veronica Jeans.
Yes, exactly. So to build that up, I thought, well, if it's on Kindle, then it isn't anything that, is really solid. So that's okay. I will do electronic publishing. That book is really a convincer by me for me. So if anyone wants to read my thought process and why a person should pre-act their age, in other words, think about how it might affect them, because I do say, and still rings true, the one thing that affects everything as you age is how you feel. It may be true of all ages, but definitely in the future, I saw it again and again with my clients. So I wrote down why a person should pre-plan for how they would love to age well, as far as how they feel and how those who care about them are feeling about their aging. And that's why there had to be 52 aspects. I know there's more, but I I tried to broaden each category to be very general so that it wasn't about a disease
Mm.
or just ageism in the public eye, because that's been you know, on national news and apparently around the world, because I've communicated with people in Australia, and there's
Absolutely.
people that work on ageism, but just generally feeling like I'm being treated differently now,
Mm.
aging, and there's parts of it, maybe I like the respect, but maybe I don't like the assumptions, the expectations that people have on me because they're looking at my outward appearance. My husband has said, even today, no, it was his buddy, but my husband has said the same thing. I'm still a teenager, just with extra layers on.
Mhm.
I was just 17. How can I be turning 60? Says Russ. This is bizarre. So we're just a person inside, just like we were all during all of our years. And yet our outside is affecting other people. Isn't that crazy? So what? Oh, that was a picture still in Waco, Texas. Um, a church that had to be almost fully rebuilt, but it still
Mhm.
has
There.
components and it has a story. My goodness, we learned so much from the people that we interacted with. And in Waco, I actually gave my books. There was a person behind the counter. We talked for a moment. I said, "How long have you been doing this job?" It had only been days.
Mhm.
And but the next thing they said was, what I really want to do is go back and try to really get my nursing degree this time. But
Mhm.
I'm doing this job until then. And we ended up, in Waco a few days. So I actually brought my books in and signed them over. It is better than a business card. I would love to debate that with someone else. It's better than a business card. When my husband made business cards for me, I was a little shy at first, and then it got really easy to just leave them with people everywhere. But when I walk in with this big old thing, or even just the little one, they know that I am taking my job, my business, my passion seriously, seriously enough that I've laid it out for someone else to understand. So,
Mhm.
not just, oh, I work for XYZ. It's, this is important,
Yeah.
and it's treated that way. A business card can slip away, but a book, people stop and take a peek at that. And honey, I just wanted you to know, if I didn't tell you, that while you were networking at the San Antonio Texas Library Association conference, a man came back to the booth and said, "Where is that book? It was here. I remember it. It wasn't dark. It wasn't the red one." And I said, "Oh," and I pulled open your bag, fish, 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 found your networking for students
Mm.
for him. You experienced that people were hungry,
Yep.
librarians and teachers
Yep.
were hungry for a genre that just wasn't as represented there.
That's right. Yep.
And that genre was the high schooler,
High
the
school.
junior higher high schooler. And I ended up telling people that this networking for students was wonderful for those students who are already thinking like solopreneurs. They're already thinking about what business they want to get into, what company they want to work for, what they want to invent, what they want to accomplish. And to start networking, I mean, social media is full of teenagers who want to be recognized, want to be remembered, want to be unique and stand out and be reached out to and be liked. And networking for students is for um, introverts, extroverts, and hybrids. Because
Absolutely.
are you extrovert? Are you an extrovert networking efficiently? Are you an introvert networking effectively?
Well, and this
Where you
is
can
yeah.
crisscross that, you know, and it's like, hey, I can try this new thing that D. Scott Smith suggested in his book.
This is where people think that being an introvert or an extrovert is related to networking, and they're absolutely dissociated. There is no connection between being an extrovert and being an introvert and being good or bad at networking. I read an article one time, and it was the opening sentence was so bad because it said extroverts are natural networkers. Well, extroverts get energy by being with people.
Mm,
And so, yeah, if being with people is networking, which it's not, then extroverts are good at it and introverts would be bad. But in my books, I tell
mm,
you that uh, being good at connecting with people, being an effective networker, does not require you to be an extrovert and is not limited by being an introvert. So here's the deal: extroverts, they love being with people. They are bad networkers because they talk all the time, yak 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 yak. They don't get to know anybody because they're just they're just filling the space. Introverts are not good at networking because they don't say anything and nobody learns about who they are. So it's a third skill, being effective at networking. In the book, I'll tell you how to do it. Um, Christine, you talked about writing your first book when you were 62 years old,
yeah.
and now you've written a couple of other books. There's more coming. You do this weekly show interviewing experts on the aspects of aging,
Mhm.
and you are an entrepreneur. You have been an entrepreneur. In fact, you were the first entrepreneur in our family when you started
Mhm.
your own tutoring business. And
Mhm.
that goes way back. That leads into this particular book. This is the Independent Planner and Journal, and this is a calendar system that has an explanation and a section for journaling. But this is specifically designed for entrepreneurs. So if you're like me and you have ideas and you're running a business, or Christine, um, Franklin planners, day timers, your Google Calendar, your Apple Calendar, whatever you use, analog or digital, this is designed by an entrepreneur for entrepreneurs. And
Mhm.
so I recommend that. The other thing is that I've highlighted in the carousel a book that I wrote. It's a Kindle book. It's uh, called Influence: Creation of Credibility. And it takes you through how to publish a book, not just write a book, but how to publish a book, an online course to go with it, and a webinar to promote it in 12 weeks or less, right? So right now this is May 1st, May, June, July. You could have a book, online course, and webinar ready to go by July of this summer, by August of this summer, if you start today. So, influence: Creation of Credibility. It is in the carousel. And then there's a couple of podcasts that I have. One of them is Motivational Listener. There's a lot of good networking tips in there. And then there is a podcast called Publish Your Book. So, nothing hidden in the title. I tell you what it is. There are a number of episodes in there specifically designed to support and encourage you in telling your story, writing your book. And everybody's got a book. It could be fiction, could be nonfiction. And don't worry about the fact that maybe somebody else has written a book about leadership, about management, about aging. You have synthesized information and you apply it like no one else in the universe. No one's going to tell it the way you tell it. So do like Christine and publish your book. Don't just write it. Don't just think, I wish that I did. Actually get through and do it.
Mhm.
And then the last one that I'm going to mention in there is one that I did. Uh, Go to the audio version. So two of my books I have done audio books for, and Threnody, and this is 19th century sensibility proves that people have not changed, and that there's a lot of poems in there from J.G. Holland, Josiah Gilbert Holland, and I read those. It's a wonderful way to go. And for those of you that are in audiobooks, that's the one that I recommend for that. But Christine, as we wind down, we had such a great time on this trip. We went to Dallas, Waco, Austin, Rockport,
Yes.
Corpus Christi, and San Antonio.
Houston.
We went to Houston. We got to see so many people that we had only met online, others that we had met both online and in person. But this was a great experience, and I encourage people to get out and connect with people digitally and physically. Don't neglect one for the other. The conjunction in this case is not or, it is and. Do this and that. Do connect virtually and in person. But we had so much fun at the Texas Library Association conference, including petting kittens. But let's have you close us out today and tell some of the stories from the books, because we gave a lot of the Caregiver Kit, the Pre-Act Your Age, Prompted Journal. We gave away the copies of Networking for Students and Business Networking, a Scientific Method. I even gave away the copy of the Freeze, Inaction in the Face of Business Crisis, that was signed by Veronica Jeans, that I meant to keep, but it was, this person was wanting the book so much that I gave it to him. And guess what? I'll get together with Veronica again, and I'll have her sign my own copy of the book. But coming back to Oregon for just a moment, here's a picture of Christine and I with the cherry blossoms out in front of the Oregon State Capitol. We took that last month. And Christine, finish us up with some stories.
Oh, with some stories. All righty. I'm gonna show you this picture. It's a wedding, and the shoulder is our son-in-law, or I should say just hours before he became our son-in-law. We did the pictures ahead of time, and then a lot of pictures after as well. I'm going to say that this big, daunting 52 Aspects of Aging book, it's big this way. It is the book that is meant to be written in, and whether you are a journaler or not, it's already got some answers for you to circle or cross out or draw an arrow to. It's the sort of book that you'll be glad that you already filled in when, well, let me put it this way. No one has ever said, I wish I hadn't been so well prepared for that crisis. They usually say the opposite. Why didn't I see this coming? So, I think the final story that I'm going to tell is a young man in Houston who said, "You're just blowing my mind." And he kept backing up and going, "Whoa." And that conversation was started with something on paper. So it was, what is this about? How do I start? Where do I, why should I? And we were able to hand out, and it was like, this is blowing my mind that you would be so helpful. And I thought, and we are influencing. You said the what is that? Credibility. What's that title again? Say it right.
Creation of credibility. Influence, creation of credibility.
Right. We were influencing that young man in that moment because we offer books, because we are published authors. So those were some pictures from the wedding. Anyway, we put our names and our pictures in those books because this is our lived experience provided for anyone and for generations to come. If you want to buy one of these books and give it to someone else and see if they read it, if they have a response, if you want to buy Pre-Act Your Age Prompted Journal and give it to someone who loves journaling and then have a conversation with them, you'll find out why you want these books for yourself. And I highly recommend Networking for Students for everyone, because I don't think it's limited to just students. I think it's just limited to people who are living.
Well, I think that's a good way to go and a good way to end up here. Christine, thank you for letting me hijack your show and broadcasting onto Amazon Live and sharing with everybody a little bit of our experience here in Oregon and down in Texas. Writing books is a great way to go. I encourage everybody to do it. And by the way,
and put them on Amazon.
It does not cost anything to publish on Amazon. And so there's great ways that reach out to me. You can find me, Scott at dscottsmith.com. And please, I encourage you. With that, Christine, thanks again for letting me hijack your show and be here on Aspects of Aging. We learned a ton, and you can find Christine's program every Wednesday at noon Eastern time, 9 a.m. here on the Pacific Coast.
Yep.
AgingBetterNetwork.com. And you can find me often here on Amazon Live. We'll talk to you later, Christine.
Okie doke. And you are an expert in aging because you're doing it and you're doing it right.